He didn't die in a car accident. He was shot. I was there.
The scream tore through the night before the gunshot did. By morning, neighbors on 16th Avenue said they hadn't heard a thing. But Denise Hardy knew. She'd always known how secrets sounded in Gary like thunder muffled beneath church bells. And this one was about to rip her family apart. Quick heads up before we jump in. If you're into real stories, strange disappearances, and the kind of truths people try to bury, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. All right, let's get into it. Denise Hardy has survived for years on half-truths. To her two sons, Marcus, a 17-year-old with a jump shot and a scholarship whisper trailing him, and Jamal, a bright 12-year-old who talks to comic book heroes when the house gets too quiet. Their father died in a car crash on the Skyway. The truth is uglier. He was an enforcer for the Calumet Crew, a local drug outfit that never left Gary as much as it soaked into it. Denise watched him die in an alley behind a shuttered laundromat, and the crew forced her to help clean it up. She buried the memory and replaced it with a polite lie. When the Calumet Crew begins sniffing around Marcus, promising him money and protection, Denise must choose between letting her sons keep believing in a tidy death or dragging them into the real one. Because a cold case is warming up, a detective is asking questions, and a new gunshot on 16th Avenue sounds too much like the past refusing to stay buried. The sirens rolled in late, like someone had turned the volume down on the city. Denise lay awake in the blue light of the digital clock 311. Listening to the whale song of police cruisers sliding down Broadway. The house sighed around her, an old two-bedroom on Tyler Street with uneven floors and a porch that tilted like it was eavesdropping on the block. She wiped sleep from her eyes and thought, not for the first time, about how the night air in Gary got full of metal in August. Heat plus memory. It made the past sweat. She pushed herself up, padded across the cool floorboards, and checked on Jamal first. Her youngest slept with his mouth open and his palms tucked under his cheek like a kindergartner, even though the boy could discuss plot arcs like a professor. A stack of comics lay fanned out on the rug Miles Morales' Storm. Static faces turned up like they were listening for trouble on the roof. She adjusted his blanket and watched the tiny rise and fall of his chest, felt a sudden silly gratitude for the mundane miracle of breathing, and moved on. Marcus's door was half open. He slept on his stomach, one arm flung over the side of the bed, his fingertips nearly touching the hardwood. The boy had grown another inch this summer, shoulders bricklaying themselves higher every week, stubborn little beard trying to show up. College coaches had been texting his high school coach at West Side since last season, asking for stats with extra question marks. He had the bounce, the poise, the quickness that made gyms go quiet for 1 second after he went up and came down with a dunk. The kind of potential that made boys into targets. A siren yowled closer, then peeled away. Denise closed Marcus's door like a prayer and stood in the hallway until the house settled. She'd learned to read silence like weather reports. The sirens died. A train moaned somewhere toward the lake, and then it was only the hum of the fridge and the distant thunk of a basketball hitting a cracked driveway somewhere. Because in Gary, somebody always found a hoop even at night. She lay back down, but sleep had gone. The scream and the gunshot lived behind her eyelids, and when she finally drifted, the dream came same one it always came with. The alley behind Lakeview Laundry, back when the sign still hung. A stripe of yellow light a block away, the smell of rain on hot asphalt. Derek, the father of her sons, the boy who became a man at 17 and then forgot to stop shoving her behind a dumpster with one hand while turning to face somebody with the other. Words like muffled punches, a silver muzzle catchlight. The small sound Derek made after the first shot, like, oh. Her own scream swallowed by the night because a Deacon's Buick was idling on the next block, and the choir had just finished late practice. And in Gary, your scream didn't always get to be the main thing. Denise sat up again before the dream could finish. She went to the kitchen and made coffee she wouldn't drink. Dawn scraped its pink thumb across the world. The local news feed on her phone coughed up a headline. Overnight shooting on 16th Avenue leaves one dead. No names yet. She clicked the story with the stubborn hope it would be some other city's 16th Avenue, some other woman's ghosts. Lake County Sheriff's Office asked for tips. Witnesses said they saw a dark sedan and a man in a red hoodie. Denise swallowed. It was always a dark sedan in Gary. She put the phone face down on the table and pressed her hands to her eyelids until she saw sparks. By 7, Jamal had found the cereal and turned on a cartoon like nothing in the world could be wrong at that hour. By 8, Marcus lumbered into the kitchen, shirtless and yawning, peering at the coffee machine like it might grant him wishes. He kissed his mother's forehead. "Morning, Mama." "Morning," she said, running a thumb across his jaw like a mother of a toddler, like she could rub the whiskers back into his face. "You see the news?" he asked, glancing at her phone. "I don't watch tragedies before 9, she said, and clanged pans so the conversation would end there. He nodded, the way a kid nods when he knows a rule isn't a joke. Coach texted. Says we got open gym at 10. Some college guy might drop by. Which college? He didn't say. He shrugged, poured coffee, added so much sugar that Denise raised an eyebrow and he grinned. Don't start. I'm sweet enough. It's a self-care thing. Self-care is washing the dishes without me asking. I do wash the dishes. When I threaten to throw them out. He laughed, and Jamal laughed at the laugh, and for a second the kitchen felt bright like before. Denise, who had learned how to hold peace in her mouth like a peppermint, let it melt without biting. They ate. They did the day's small rituals. Marcus lifted his backpack. Jamal grabbed his lunch bag like a spy, clutching a dossier. Denise tucked a 20 into Jamal's palm. Pizza day? She asked. Math club day? Oh, excuse me, Professor Hardy. He grinned. Marcus took a breath like he had something else to say, then didn't. He hugged his mother and his brother and left, big shoulders hunched against the already mean heat. Denise watched them walk down the block, Marcus a half step behind Jamal, the way he always did, so he could keep him in his peripheral. They turned the corner. She counted to 10. She pressed her palm to her heart, another 10 beats, and then she got ready for work. Denise rolled silverware at the South Shore Diner on Broadway, a squashed little restaurant that felt like a family reunion where everybody had said yes to the potato salad. The owner, a white man named Richie with the soft, permanent sunburn of a lifetime of windows, kept the place floating through steel mill layoffs and the pandemic by selling comfort like religion. Denise liked afternoons best. Swing shift came in hungry, retired folks came for pie, and the church ladies from New Hope slid into booths and argued about pastors with real joy. It was an ecosystem of the sort of kindness people forgot existed in a city they only knew from news chirons. She tied her apron and clocked in. Hey, Dee, called Paris from the line, flapping a spatula. We got a tray of bacon with your name on it, if you don't mind burning your fingertips off. I got asbestos hands, Denise said, and grabbed the tray, and they moved together like music, because getting food out on time was choreography you felt in your ankles. At noon, the bell over the door jingled and 2 men in crisp polo shirts stepped in, both black, both with that glassy calm you see in men who like to be looked at. The shorter one wore too much cologne. The taller one had a scar down his jaw like a grammar mark. Denise didn't have to ask who they were. Some men carried the crew like an aura. Table or booth? She said, voice empty, pen ready. Booth, said the tall one, scanning the diner with a bored secret police glance that made Denise want to slap him. They slid in. He looked at her like he was trying to thread a memory. You're Denise, right? I'm whoever you need me to be if you tip good, she said, steady, and he laughed like he appreciated the cute. But his eyes kept reading her face like a file. He didn't order coffee. He ordered lemonade. He didn't give his name. Place been here since forever, he said. I used to come in with my aunt when I was little. Guy at the grill would sneak me extra bacon. Paris still sneaks kids extra bacon, Denise said. That's how we build our clientele. Paris, he said, rolling the name like a coin. I'm Calvin. Cal. He looked at the scarred table, at the smudged window, at the batters and gravy menu that hadn't changed in 25 years, and then back at her. How's Marcus? Denise felt the air change. She kept writing the specials on her pad, so her hand would keep moving. Which Marcus, you mean? She asked, too light. Your boy. West Side. Got bounce. He's something. I seen him play at the J last month. He's got that thing you can't teach. Cal's smile didn't touch his eyes. He's got a fan club. Everybody's a fan when the shots go in, Denise said. Come on, D. Can I call you D? He didn't wait for the S. We keep an eye on everybody. It's a small city. Good to see a young man headed somewhere. College makes a mother proud. What can I get you? Denise said, because she was not about to give him her motherhood to play with. Cal smiled again, sharper this time. Chicken and waffles, extra hot sauce, and maybe a talk with your boy sometime. Just advice. You know how it is. Kitchen closes at 3, Denise said. Advice is on the house after that. She turned away before her face could tell on her. She delivered their food. She watched them eat like wolves pretending to be golden retrievers. Cal left a 50 under the ketchup bottle and a card with a phone number on it, neat and white, no name. The scarred man winked at Paris on the way out, like he was leaving a party. When the door shut, Denise took the card and slid it down her apron and into her sock. Some numbers you only felt safe keeping if they were touching your skin. On her break, she went outside and stood under the pale shade of a dead tree and watched Broadway exhale. A city bus hissed, the driver's face blank and lit. A pair of little girls in beads and barrettes threw a ball in front of a boarded house with the care of neurosurgeons. A police SUV rolled by slow, a white officer peering at the girls with that look like curiosity packaged as concern. He glanced at Denise and looked through her. She tucked the card deeper against her ankle and shuddered. After work, she cut across to the corner store to grab milk. The bell jingled. Mr. Klein, who'd owned the place since the Bulls first three-peated and treated every black teenager like a lab experiment that might explode, nodded at her with the grudging respect he reserved for women who paid cash. Afternoon, Miss Hardy. Afternoon, she said, picking up milk, eggs, and for the boys, pack of red Twizzlers, because she was soft. At the register, Mr. Klein frowned at the Twizzlers. Sugar is bad for the teeth, he said. Fear is bad for the heart, she said, and slid a 10 across the counter. Lot of police earlier, he said, ringing up slow. Like birds, she said. They do flock. He squinted. You hear about that shooting? 16th Avenue? I don't watch tragedies before 9, she said, taking her bag and leaving him blinking. She walked home the long way, past New Hope Missionary Baptist, past a yard where a silver Oldsmobile sat on cinder blocks like a sculpture, past a mural of a black angel with a steel mill halo. A wind came off the lake and tried to cheer her up. It worked for 1 block, and then it didn't. At home, Jamal was on the couch with his comics and a bowl big enough to swim in. Mama, can storm control tornadoes, or is it more just like rain and lightning? Because technically, she can control whatever the plot needs, baby, Denise said, kissing the top of his head. Where's your brother? Jim, Jamal said. He said Coach wants film, and he said he might stop at Raheem's after. Denise nodded. Text me when he gets there, she said. Jamal already had. Can we get pizza tonight? He asked. But not from Mario's, because their sauce tastes like coins. You say their sauce tastes like coins. It does, like pennies. Like when you lick a quarter to see if it's real. When have you licked a quarter? Denise asked, amused horror in her voice. I'm a scientist, she laughed. We'll see. Don't tell your dentist. He went back to his story. Denise went to her room with the milk and the eggs and the Twizzlers, closed the door, and sat on the edge of her bed like it might give answers. She took off her shoes. The card fell into her hand like a confession. She stared at the neat numbers for a long minute, and then slid it into a little jewelry box where she kept the trapdoor parts of her life, the hospital bracelets from both boys' births. A baby tooth of Marcus's in an envelope marked, "Baby tooth, not weird." An old Polaroid of her and Derek at the beach in Miller when they were 19. Him in a red-white Sox cap he'd always tilted a little like a joke, his arm around her waist like a promise. And at the bottom, wrapped in a strip of old choir robe, a burner phone that hadn't been turned on in years. She'd kept it out of a superstition she couldn't name. That phone had buzzed the night Derek died, after the alley, after the long ride with the two men who made her sit in the back with her hands folded like she was a disobedient child, after they made her help push the car into the drainage ditch off 25th where weeds grew tall like gossip and pour gasoline like holy water. It had buzzed while she sobbed in her bathroom in a shower, so hot her skin hurt. A text, you say anything and your boys won't have a mama. She turned it off then and never turned it on again. But she hadn't thrown it away either, because she didn't believe in destroying evidence unless you were sure you'd never need justice. She held the little weight in her palm. The news headline kept flashing in her head. Men in red hoodies, dark sedans. Calvin with the scar down his jaw and his smile like a lock. Don't you dare, she told the phone out loud and pressed the jewelry box shut. At 7, Marcus texted that he'd be home by 9. He sent a selfie from a gas station with Raheem, both of them pretending to look serious. Raheem, all elbows and flashing grin, had lived 3 doors down since kindergarten and was the kind of loyal that could be a superpower or a liability depending on the day. Denise texted back a thumbs up and then typed, "Be careful. Delete that. Have fun. Delete that. Please come straight home. Delete that." She sent a heart and a basketball and set her phone face down again like it was rude. The doorbell rang at 7:30. Denise wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened it to a woman in a gray blazer too nice for the block and black boots too practical for a politician. The woman held out a badge, not cocky, not apologetic. Ms. Hardy? Detective Alana Pierce, Gary Police Department. Denise's blood got colder. Is there a problem? I'd like to ask you a few questions, Pierce said. She was in her 30s, brown skin, hair in a tight bun that told you she was tired of people's nonsense, eyes that did math. May I come in? I don't buy anything at the door, Denise said. After a beat too long, she sighed. Fine, but my boy's watching TV. You keep your voice soft. You have my word. Pierce stepped in, clocking the living room, the framed school photos, the homemade bookshelf sagging with paperbacks, the quilt thrown across the couch. Nice quilt. My Auntie Rosalind's, Denise said, and something mean in her wanted to add. You got a warrant to compliment, but she didn't. Jamal looked up from the couch. Hi, he said. Hey, Pierce said, kindness unforced. What you reading? X-Men, but the good run, Jamal said. You like comics? I like anything that makes the world make sense, Pierce said. Can I talk to your mama in the kitchen? Jamal shrugged. Denise led Pierce into the kitchen, shut the door, but not all the way, because she did not do closed doors with police in her house. She sat, folded her hands, because that was what you did when the state visited your table, and waited. Pierce stood. There was a shooting last night on 16th Avenue. I saw, Denise said. You know the victim? I do not. His name is Trevor Willis, 21. He ran with... Pierce tilted her head. People. You can say it, Denise said. Ran with the crew. Allegedly, Pierce said. Ballistics matched the casing at the scene to a gun used in another shooting 10 years ago behind Lakeview Laundry. Denise held her breath. The kitchen shifted like a boat. There are a lot of shootings. Pierce watched her the way a woman watches another woman who she knows has survived something and won't say what it is. 10 years ago, she said softer, your husband, Derek Hardy, was reported missing. The report says last seen near 24th and Madison. Friends and neighbors recall seeing him outside Lakeview Laundry. The report says you told the officer he went to Chicago for a side job and never came back. Denise swallowed. She remembered the officer's bored face, his hand scribbling like a punishment. She remembered the way he didn't ask if she was okay. He did go to Chicago for jobs, Denise said, and hated herself for clinging to the shape of a truth like a lifeboat. Pierce nodded. Case went cold, but we keep old shells. We keep notes. We get new computers, and we feed the old pain in to see what comes out. The gun that killed Trevor last night spit the same language as the gun that... She paused. As the gun we think was used that night. That proves what? That the same world is talking, Pierce said. And the world likes to repeat itself. Denise closed her eyes. What do you want from me? Anything you didn't say then, Pierce said. Anything you've remembered. Anything you didn't feel safe to say. Denise stared at a stain on the table, shaped like Indiana. I didn't feel safe, she said. I know, Pierce said. Do you? Denise asked, sharper than she meant. Pierce's mouth twitched. Less than I'd like. More than some of my colleagues. They stood on that small piece of shared ground and didn't look at each other for a second. Outside, a kid pedaled by, singing something tuneless at the top of his lungs, sweet and off-key. I have 2 boys, Denise said finally. They are my life. I figured that out when I walked in, Pierce said. If you know who might be trying to bring your oldest into something. Denise's eyes snapped up. What did you say? Pierce held up a poem. Don't panic. I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm saying there are men in this city who collect promising kids like baseball cards. I'm saying their names out loud adds weight. Denise exhaled a long, slow burn of air. Cal. Pierce blinked. Calvin Reed? He came to the diner today. Said he wanted to talk to my boy. Denise made her voice mimic his. Advice. Pierce's jaw set. Reed is a recruiter. He calls himself a mentor. He's got a probation officer's smile and a funeral director's hands. He started young. Did some years in Michigan City when he was 20 and came out polished. She leaned in. If he's sniffing around your house, we need to move now, not later. Move how? Denise asked. What? You gonna put a police car outside my door and hope that doesn't paint a target on the boys? Pierce didn't flinch. We could do a drive-by presence for a few days casual, but you know that's not a long-term solution. The longer play is cutting off the oxygen. We watch Reed. We squeeze his pockets. We make sure Marcus has no reason to need anything they offer. We keep him busy. He is busy, Denise said, feeling a stupid defensive heat rise. He's got school. He's got ball. He helps with Jamal. I know, Pierce said, soft again. I'm not telling you how to mother. I'm telling you we're living in a city where a recruiter shows up at your job like a florist. I want you to know that I know that. And I want you to know that if you remembered anything about the night Derek disappeared. Denise's throat closed. He's dead, she said, the words a dry riverbed. He died. That's what I remember. Pierce studied her face and nodded in a way that said she knew there was more. If anything else comes back, she said, call me. She slid a card across the table. Also, silly thing, don't walk alone at night for a while. I don't, Denise said. I don't anymore. When Pierce left, Jamal asked, Is Marcus in trouble? No, Denise said, and sat on the couch and pulled him into her side. We're just popular. I hate being popular, Jamal said. Me too, Denise said. At 9:17, Marcus came in, the air outside trailing behind him like a wet towel. He tossed his backpack in the chair, his face neutral, which Denise had learned meant he had a lot to say and none of it. Hey, she said, you eat? Raheem's mom made chicken, he said. It was holy. Must be nice to live right with God, she said, teasing, reading his posture. He moved to the fridge, to the cabinet, to the fruit bowl, not because he needed anything, but because pretending to look for food gave a boy cover to think. Finally, he braced his hands on the counter. Mama? You know Cal Reed? Denise inhaled, slow. He stopped by the diner. He stopped by the gym, Marcus said. He turned around, tilted his head, and she saw that he was trying to look grown and felt sick with love for the child who had learned this look. He said he watched me play. Said, I got this future. He said he knows people who could help. He said he could get me some. He glanced at Jamal, who was pretending not to listen. Some things. So I'm not always worrying about shoes and gas money, and he swallowed. He wasn't pushy. Just like, we take care of our own. And we're our own, Denise said, voice low. I know. Marcus studied his feet. Mama, sometimes it feels like everybody got a handout for a piece of you. Teachers want grades. Coach wants tapes. You want me alive. I want to be alive. But sometimes I can't hear my own thoughts over all that. Denise put her hands on the counter too, mirrored him like they were in a dance. When a man you don't know says he can help, I want you to hear me over that noise. I do, he said. I hear you. I'm just telling you what the noise is saying. What did you say to him? Denise asked. I said I got a mama. Denise couldn't keep the smile off her face, a quick flash of pride that made her eyes water. Good answer. He said he respects that, Marcus said. He said he respects strong women. He said, Tell Miss Hardy I said hello. Of course he did, Denise said. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a white card. He gave me this. Denise took it. Same number, same neat font. They were tasteful criminals now. She folded the card in half. Throw it away, she said. She didn't. She slid it into her back pocket, like it might bite the chair if she left it alone. At midnight, after everyone slept a little or faked it, Denise sat in the blue light of the kitchen again. She took the jewelry box out. She stared at the burner phone. She told herself not to. She pressed the power button anyway. The phone coughed back to life like a resurrected gossip. A date blinked wrong for a moment, then adjusted. No new messages. Her shoulders fell in a way she didn't expect, something like disappointment and relief wearing the same coat. She scrolled through the old texts, each one a bruise. You got the money. Don't make me find you. We are family. Remember. Where you at? D. She let out a sound that could have been a laugh if you were cruel. The contacts list had 2 people starred. Lion, Derek, ironic since he was the one who named himself, and T, no last name, who had texted once after the alley. Car taken care of. Remember, we got you. Denise had not believed in that. We then, and didn't now. She clicked out. She almost turned it off. Then, on a dumb impulse she would blame on the way solitude makes courage look like sense, she typed a single text to the number labeled T. Stop circling my son. She stared at the words, her heart punching her in the ribs. She hovered over send. She set the phone down. She picked it up again, like she was being dared. She deleted son and typed family. She deleted family and typed house. She deleted house and typed life. Her hand shook. She typed, "I see you," and pressed send before she could change it. The message whooshed into the past and the present in equal measure. The second stretched. The phone buzzed. Who this? She should have thrown the phone into the sink. She should have walked it out to the curb, set it on the storm drain, and let it slip into the city's throat. Instead, she typed, "Denise Hardy." Silence. Then, "Oh, but look at that, the dead speak." Her throat closed like a fist. "I'm not dead," she typed. Another buzz. "You sure? Because your man ain't." Her eyes stung. She typed before she could stop herself. "I know what you did." The three dots pulsed, stopped, pulsed. Then, "We all did what we had to, you included. Do yourself a favor and mind your quiet. P.S. Your boy got a smooth handle. Proud of that." Denise's fingers froze. The kitchen blurred. She stood so fast, her chair screeched. She wanted to wake Marcus and take him into the car and drive to Chicago and keep driving into the lake and keep going until the car grew gills. Instead, she typed one last thing. "Leave my sons alone, or I tell the detective everything." The reply came quicker than a breath. "You do that, you'll be planning 2 funerals. Maybe 3. The world went very still, the way it does before a storm drops its shoulder. Denise wiped the phone clean with a dish towel. Like that could erase anything. She turned it off. She hid it again. She stood at the sink with both hands braced on the counter until her arms hurt. On Saturday, the church felt too bright. New Hope wore sunlight like a hat. Denise sang with the choir because singing metabolized fear into something the Lord could recognize. The alto section leaned into her voice like it was scaffolding. After service, there was a fish fry in the parking lot, somebody's idea of ministry that always tasted better than you remembered. Auntie Roslyn, not her actual aunt, but the kind of woman the neighborhood called Auntie because she'd bandaged more knees than the clinic, sat with Denise at a folding table. "You look skinny," Roslyn said, the same way she always said it to women she loved. "I'm fine," Denise said. "You look like you're about to give me advice." Roslyn plucked a bone out of her mouth like a magic trick. "Marcus been walking with big boys after practice." Denise's neck prickled. "Who told you that?" "I got eyes and a sister at the J who got better eyes. Calvin Reed been hovering like a mosquito. I swatted. He smiled like I tickled him." Roslyn scowled. "I don't like that boy. He got a ghost behind his left ear." "You always talking about ghosts," Denise said, smiling because she needed to. "That don't mean I'm wrong." Roslyn leaned in, voice gone low. "You should tell Marcus the truth about his daddy." Denise stiffened. "You've been saying that for 10 years. "And I'll keep saying it," Roslyn said. "You think a lie keep a boy safe?" "It don't. It makes him curious. He fills in the blanks with somebody else's story. Don't let that cowboy be the one to write it." Denise looked at the blacktop, shimmering with heat. Across the lot, Marcus stood surrounded by cousins and deacons and men who used to run track and now ran on memory. He laughed easy, and for a second he looked like he was 8 again and convinced he could jump and hang from the moon. She wanted to tape that moment to the inside of her eyelids. "I will," she said, and meant it for the length of a breath. "Today," Roslyn said. Denise exhaled. "Soon." Roslyn shook her head like she'd watched too many women say "soon" to the wrong things. "You know those detective ladies? The one with the cheekbones? Alana Pierce," Denise said. "She come by my porch to ask about Derek. Then she bought socks and school supplies for my niece's little boy. Lady like that either got a savior complex or a plan." Denise snorted and sobered. "She told me the shell matched. I figured," Roslyn said. "You tell her what you saw?" Denise didn't answer. Roslyn's silence held none of the judgment Denise had braced for. Only an old woman's inventory of grief. She had a list of names in her head, and Denise knew Rosalind had prayed each one like a bead. "You tell her when you're ready," Rosalind said, "but don't wait until the devil sends you flowers." That evening, Marcus and Raheem said they were going to hit the court behind the old elementary school, the one with bent rims and grass, trying to take the baseline back. Denise said be back by 9, and meant 7. She watched them leave with a lump in her throat she swallowed like medicine. Jamal sat at a table building a Lego spaceship with surgical focus. "You ever been in space?" he asked, serious. "Every night this week," she said. "It's loud up there." At 8:03, a text came from Marcus. At Raheem's, "We good. Love you." She typed "love you" and left it at that. At 8:47, a car idled slow outside, the base turned down out of respect or strategy. Denise peeked through the blinds. The sedan was dark, tasteful, new tires, tinted windows with that expensive kind of tint that made Son want to apologize. She felt the old hush of the city, as if the block itself took a breath. The doorbell rang. Denise's mouth dried. She swallowed and opened it to Calvin again, still in a collared shirt, like church had blessed him. The scar on his jaw looked deeper in the porch light. "I told you not to come to my home," Denise said. "You didn't," he said, "but I take your meaning. I came to explain myself like a gentleman." "You are neither," Denise said. "Explain from the sidewalk." He smiled and stepped back. He put his hands in his pockets in that way men do to show they're not a threat while reminding you they have hands. "I grew up 2 blocks from here," he said. "When I was a kid, Miss Neal would catch me stealing plums and make me help her weed. The whole block raised me wrong and right. I ain't pretending I'm a saint. I did my dirt. I'm just saying I'm not a stranger. You come around my son, you are," Denise said. "I'm around talent," Calvin said. "Look, maybe nobody told you the truth plain because they scared of you." He said it with admiration. "But the colleges that will come sniffing, they like good stories, Miss Hardy, stories that play well on camera. Overcame adversity, raised by a queen, stayed away from bad influences. They'll post that story on their socials with a trap beat. Meanwhile, the folks who live here see something else. A boy who's still got to walk from the bus to his front door at night." He took a step closer and then back as if demonstrating respect he didn't feel. "I'm offering to make that walk safer." "By putting him in your shadow?" Denise asked. Her voice was calm, a knife wrapped in a napkin. Calvin's smile thinned. "My shadow is safer than the dark." "You don't get to rename the dark," Denise said. "You are the dark." For a second, something true flickered across his face, and it was gone. He shrugged. "You got my number," he said. "When the world hits you with a bill you can't pay, you'll remember me. I'll be polite about it. That's the difference between me and the next man." "There is no difference between men who take children for profit," Denise said. "Only haircuts." He laughed, but his eyes were flat. "Tell Marcus I said congrats. Got a scout from a JUCO in Illinois asking about him. I said his mama got a backbone. Scouts like that." "Leave my porch," Denise said. "Now." He left. The car slid away like a fish. Denise closed the door and leaned her forehead against it. Jamal said, "Mama?" "It's okay," she said, and the lie burned less than usual because she wanted it so much to be true. At 10:12, Marcus came in, not grinning. He put down his phone carefully, like it had been talking back. He said hello to Jamal. He didn't meet his mother's eyes. "What?" she said. "Nothing," he said. "What?" she said again, not letting him escape in the negative space. Denise had been holding a breath so long it had calcified. She let it out slow and steady, because you teach your child how to breathe by example. "I'm sorry," she said, and it felt like a puddle against a forest fire. "It's fine," Marcus said, shrugging a shoulder that ached. "It's just Cal seems like one of the few people around here who thinks I'm worth protecting." Denise grabbed the edge of the table so she wouldn't grab his face. "Don't you do that," she said, voice low. "Don't you make a home out of a wolf because the shepherd was late." He looked at her, hurt, defensive, 19 emotions tripping each other. "I didn't say nothing about moving in with nobody. I just said—" "I know what you just said," she cut in, softer. "I know how the math gets done. My mother did bad math when I was your age. She thought a man who kept the lights on maybe loved us. Turns out he just didn't like the dark." She sighed. "I should have told you things sooner." He blinked. "Like what?" "About your father," she said. The kitchen seemed to tilt. "Sit." He sat. Jamal looked from one to the other and slid off his chair like a cat and ghosted down the hallway because he had learned when to leave a room. Denise took a breath that scraped her ribs. "I told you your daddy died in a car wreck on the Skyway." Marcus nodded, suspicious of the past tense. "It isn't true," she said. "He died in an alley behind Lakeview Laundry. He was shot. I was there." Silence built a little shack between them. Marcus stared at her like she had just rearranged the furniture in a house he had memorized. "What?" Denise told him as much as she could without breaking into pieces. Derek's slow slide from hustle to weapon. The night he called her to bring him a jacket and a prayer. The voices in the alley, the gun, the terrible sound he made when a body realizes it's being evicted. She told him she was shoved into a car. She told him they made her help disappear the evidence. She didn't tell him how her hands smelled for weeks after, how she had to cut her fingernails down to the quick because she felt like sorrow lived under them. She didn't tell him about the text that threatened to take her motherhood like a license. She told him enough to change him. His face did something she would never forget. It didn't break. That would have been easier to watch. It rearranged itself, the lines of childhood moving over to make space for this new, heavy word. Murder. He swallowed. "Why didn't you?" "Because I was scared," she said, and found herself crying without warning, tears landing on the table like small, infuriated dots. Because the men who did it had friends everywhere. Because there was a cop who told me if Derek was missing, it was because he wanted to be. Because my own heart decided the only way to keep you both breathing was to pretend the truth was a ghost. Marcus looked down. He let out a breath like he was deflating a balloon very carefully, because a little kid was sleeping next to it. "Okay," he said, and the word felt like a ledge. "I'm telling you now," she said, "because men like Cal will try to tell you they know the story better than me. They don't. They were footnotes in a book I am writing." He nodded, eyes glassy. "Did you ever tell the police?" "Not enough," she said. A detective came by, Alana Pierce. "She thinks the gun that killed a boy last night is the same gun from your father's." She swallowed the next word. "From that night." Marcus pressed his lips together. "So they're recycling the bullets now." "It's all one circle if you let it be," Denise said. "I'm done walking in circles." There was a sound outside, a soft thud like a package dropped. Denise stood fast, wiped her face with the back of her hand, and went to the front door. The porch light made the small square of world look holy. At her feet sat a shoebox. No label. No writing. A black ribbon tied around it like the world was being cute. She stood there longer than she needed to, the air heavy, the night murmuring. Then she nudged the box with her toe. Nothing. She picked it up. It wasn't heavy. She carried it inside to the table she had just told the worst truth of her life at, and lifted the lid. Inside was a pair of brand new basketball shoes. Expensive. Right colorway for West Side. Under the tissue paper, a folded piece of paper. A gift for our VP. Family looks out for family. "See," Marcus stared. Denise's hands went cold. Jamal peered around the corner, eyes like saucers. "Trash," Denise said, but her voice sounded far away. "Mama," Marcus said. He picked up a shoe. It was perfect. It looked like opportunity had a smell. He held it like a glass thing and then set it back down like it had teeth. He looked at her. I didn't ask for this. I know, she said. They don't wait to be asked. That's the trick. They stood around the box like it was a campfire. The house creaked. Somewhere a neighbor laughed, sharp and happy. Denise closed the lid, wrapped the ribbon back around it with hands that didn't tremble because she refused to let them, and pushed the box back across the table to Marcus. Take it to the station tomorrow, she said. We are logging every favor. He nodded, eyes hardening into something she recognized from her own reflection. When she was his age and decided to stop making herself small for men who thought hunger gave them the right to your ribs. Okay, he said again, but this time it wasn't a ledge. It was a step. That night, Denise couldn't sleep. She texted Detective Pierce a simple, "We need to talk." She put the burner phone in the freezer because someplace in her body believed cold could quiet anything. She lay down and waited for the thunder she felt was already inside the house. At 2:13 a.m., the thunder came from outside, a car door closing with a thud that smelled like money and rot. Denise slipped to the window and tilted aslant. A figure stood in the street, looking up at the house. Red hoodie, hands in pockets. He wasn't moving like a man deciding. He was moving like a man who had already decided and was getting good at standing still. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asleep yet? She didn't move. The figure shifted, looked left, looked right, and stepped into a cone of light. It wasn't Calvin. It was a boy. Young. Skin like he hadn't seen the sun except in the leaks between buildings. He pulled his hoodie mouth over his nose, and with a little flourish that made Denise want to scream, lifted his phone and angled it toward the house, like a man taking a photo of a landmark. Another text. Nice place. You should get better locks. She let the slat fall. Her hands were ice. The part of her brain that had kept her alive since the alley clicked through its lists. She stood in the doorway of Marcus's room and watched him sleep like a mountain forgives snow. She stood in Jamal's doorway and watched him dream of planets. She went back to her bed and lay down and stared at the ceiling and waited for the sound that would mean she had to become something she had promised God she wouldn't. Morning came anyway, as if the night didn't matter. Denise took the shoebox to the station with Marcus. Detective Pierce met them at the door, hair looser today, a pair of sneakers under the desk that made Denise like her more. They sat in an interview room. It smelled like paperwork and the backs of other people's lives. Marcus put the box on the table like he was surrendering a weapon. Gift? Pierce said. Threat, Denise said. Both, Pierce said, weighing the shoe in her hands. We'll log it. We'll dust it. We'll pretend we're not 50 steps behind. She slid the note into a plastic sleeve. You heard from anyone else? Denise hesitated. She glanced at Marcus. He nodded like he was ready for grown-up weather. I texted a number on a phone I shouldn't still have, she said, and pulled the burner out of her purse like a snake. I told whoever it was to stop circling my child. They texted back. Pierce didn't say, "Why would you do that?" She said, "May I?" Denise handed it over. Pierce examined it. If this thing had cheeks, they'd be red, she muttered, scrolling. She read the exchange, her mouth tightening. T, she said. We've had our eye on a man named Terrell Vaughn. Goes by T, Calvin's boss in everything but worship. He keeps clean paper. He keeps other people's hands dirty. He's smart. She met Denise's eyes. You poked a smart man. Good, Denise said, surprising herself. Pierce nodded once, like maybe she had been waiting to hear that. We'll pull the records. We'll see what we can do with the box. In the meantime, Denise said, we go to church and school and work like we're allowed to. Pierce's look was halfway between admiration and worry. In the meantime, she said carefully, We consider places your boys can be after dark that are not your house. You think they'll come by at night? Marcus asked, trying to make the question not sound like a boy asking if the monsters were real. I think intimidation is a language, Pierce said, and they speak it fluently. They spoke it last night, Denise said. A boy in a red hoodie came to my block and took a photo of my house like it was a landmark. Describe him? Pierce asked, pen moving. 17, 18 maybe. Small, not heavy. Scar on his eyebrow like someone took a piece out and put it back wrong. Shoes too clean. She paused. He reminded me of somebody who wants to be known, and somebody who is tired of not being. Pierce scribbled. We'll canvass. We'll make it obvious. She stood. You're not alone, Miss Hardy. I am when the lights go off, Denise said, but she nodded her thanks anyway. They left the station into a bright that felt rude. On the steps, a man in a suit on his phone looked at Marcus with that evaluating look older men save for young athletes and said, You play for West Side? Marcus said yes, because he had been taught to be polite, and the man said, You got height, son. Like that was all there was to say about a person. Denise had to fight the urge to put her body between her child and the gaze. The day tried its best to be regular. Denise worked a double at the diner because she needed to earn money, the hard way to remind herself there were still honest currencies. Marcus went to open gym. Jamal went to math club and came home annoyed that somebody in the county had said maths like they were British. Denise cooked spaghetti and the house filled with garlic, and she let herself believe sauce could be a prayer. At dusk, a knock came, soft and rhythmic, like rain performing love. Denise opened the door, expecting Rosalind's face or the neighbor who borrowed sugar and returned it as pie. Instead, a young man stood there, the red hoodie down, a small scar in his eyebrow catching the porch light. He held up both hands empty, palms forward. Up close he looked like a kid who had been held under water and taught to be grateful for air. Ma'am, he said, voice thin with nerves. Don't slam the door. Denise didn't move. Marcus stood up behind her. Jamal, behind Marcus, put his Lego man in his pocket like a talisman. What do you want? Denise said. She let all her mother and all her grief sit in the space between each word. My name's Keon, the boy said. I'm supposed to give you a message. But, he swallowed, I don't want to be here. Then leave, Marcus said. Body flexed like words could become a sprint. Keon's eyes darted to him, to the house, back to Denise. They said to tell you that. He closed his eyes like it hurt. That family looks out for family. And that if you want to keep your family. He stopped. He couldn't say the rest. The restraint wrung something in Denise's chest. I'm sorry, he whispered. Who sent you? Denise asked, although the names were a foregone conclusion. Keon blurted, Please just. He pulled something from his pocket, a thumb drive, and held it out like it was a weapon and a pity. He said if you want to know what happened to, if you want to see. He swallowed. He said to give you this. Denise didn't take it. She looked at the boy's hand, at the tremor vibrating the piece of plastic. She didn't have to ask what was probably on it. She didn't want to know. She needed to know. Why you? Marcus asked, voice low. Because I'm a nobody, Keon said softly. Because if they sent somebody you recognized, you might call the police first. Denise glanced at the street behind him. The dark sedan idled 3 houses down. She could feel Calvin's eyes from here, whether he was in the car or just the feeling you get when a man like that learns your house's name. Denise took the drive with 2 fingers, like touching something radioactive. Tell them I said I don't take gifts, she said. Keon nodded too fast. I? He looked like he might cry, the terror making his nose shine. Do you got water, please? He added, desperate. It's hot. Denise stepped back, because there are rules in a city like this, and one of them is you don't let a messenger stand thirsty on your porch unless you want to forget you're human. She handed him a bottle from the fridge and watched him drink like he was trying not to love it. When he handed it back, empty, their fingers brushed. He flinched like sparks. "Thank you," he said. He hesitated. He looked at Marcus. "Man, you nice," he said, reverent in a world that gave reverence so rarely. "Go home," Marcus said, and meant find a place no one knows exists. Keon nodded like he understood the assignment and walked back to the car with the stiff shuffle of someone translating living into a language he hadn't learned. The sedan swallowed him, and the night folded itself quiet again. Denise closed the door. The thumb drive sat on her palm like a hot coal. Jamal whispered, "Is that a secret?" "It's poison," Denise said. "Don't eat it," Jamal said, very serious, as she kissed his head to keep from sobbing. They didn't watch what was on it that night, because there are things you must see in daylight to confirm you're still inside your body. Denise put it on the mantel, renamed it in her head, made it not a thumb drive, but a key, and then told herself it wasn't a key. It was a lie. She didn't know which made her sicker. At dawn, the sky went aluminum. Denise walked 3 blocks with Marcus to the bus stop, even though he thought it was childish. "I'm not 8, he grumbled. "I know," she said. "That's why I'm walking you." A car slowed. Denise's spine straightened like a ruler. But it was just a neighbor, a nurse on nights, waving with the exhausted kindness of people who know their neighbors are oxygen. They waved back. The bus exhaled to a stop and Marcus climbed on. He looked at her through the smudged window with a question in his eyes that had no words. She smiled big, hand high, because you send boys into the world with your face like armor. At the diner, the breakfast rush was mild, a mercy. Denise moved like a woman whose mind was walking 2 streets ahead of her body. Around 11, Cal walked in again, alone this time, without the cologne cloud, without the side-piece muscle. He slid into a booth like he owned it. Denise went over with a coffee pot and an expression that could sour milk. "You are persistent," she said. "Consistency is a virtue," he said, amused. "In church," she said. "In men like you, it's a habit. You get my gift?" He asked conversationally. "We do not accept gifts," she said. "That's ungrateful," he said. "That's alive," she said. He leaned forward, elbows on the table like a man about to tell a secret. "I know what happened to Derek." "I do too," she said. "I mean the parts you couldn't see from behind that dumpster," he said, soft enough that the word dumpster felt like a dirty joke. Denise kept her face still, because every muscle in it was an informant. "I mean who told who to do what. I mean who slept at whose house the week after, and put a hand on the back of a woman's neck and told her never to speak." Denise's skin crawled. She reached up and touched the back of her neck without meaning to. The place where the memory of a man's hand lived like a brand. "I have police," she said. "I have a detective who knows how to listen." Cal smiled like a man humoring a child. "You have a detective who works in a building where some of the pens belong to us," he said, still soft, still calm. "You think you can dance in there and not step on one of our toes? Come on." Paris called from the grill. "What he having?" Denise didn't look away from Cal. "Nothing," she called back. "He's full." Cal stood, stepped to the edge of the booth, and set a folded napkin on the table like he was leaving a tip. Denise didn't touch it. "2 pieces of advice," he said. "First, look both ways before you cross. Second, don't look in boxes you can't close." He patted his chest like he had a heart. "Tell Marcus I'm still his biggest fan." "Get out," she said, and he did, the bell over the door jangling like a small animal. Denise sat for 1 second, and then scooped up the napkin with a fork. Inside was a photo of her house taken from across the street at night, window squares glowing like eyes. handwritten on the back in neat block letters. Family looks out for family. She took the trash bag out because the trash needed taking and because the alley behind. The diner was a place she made herself visit sometimes to make the world small enough she could stand it. The alley stank like it always had, sour fat and wet cardboard and the tinny ghost of spilled beer. A stray cat flicked its tail and looked offended that she'd shown up. Denise set the bag by the dumpster and leaned against the building and let herself be angry instead of afraid for 1 minute. Anger felt like everything she'd been denied returning as heat. Footsteps echoed off the brick. She didn't flinch because she'd learned that flinching was a call and response in alleys. Detective Pierce appeared at the mouth of the alley, hands in her pockets like she was here to buy a bootleg DVD. "You okay?" she asked, not gentle, not rough. "No," Denise said. "Me neither," Pierce said. She stepped closer. "We got a partial print off the shoebox. It's not Calvin's. It's a kid named Kian James." Denise nodded like she had known all her life. "He came by last night." Pierce blinked. "He did? Brought this." Denise pulled the thumb drive out of her apron, the day's weirdest pocket. "Said it shows me what happened to Derek. Said it was from him." Pierce's mouth flattened. "Him is likely Terrell." She held out a hand. "May I?" Denise didn't move. "If I hand this to you, will you watch it first?" "That's my job," Pierce said. "I need you to promise me something," Denise said. Pierce raised an eyebrow. "Whatever's on here, if it's what I think, don't let it become a file you show to everyone in a room while you forget there's a woman attached to the pane," Denise said. "Don't let it become a trophy for some man who likes details." Pierce held Denise's gaze. "I'm not built like that," she said simply. "I will watch it, alone, and I will decide who needs to be wrecked by it." "Good," Denise said, and placed the drive in the detective's palm like a confession and a curse. Pierce slid it into her pocket. "One more thing," she said. "We pulled your missing person file. The officer who took your statement back then, Officer K. Blanchard, he's been under investigation, twice for improper associations." She did scare quotes with her fingers. "Meaning what?" Denise asked, though she knew. "Meaning he likes expensive friends," Pierce said. "Meaning he took a second job at a bar Terrell technically doesn't own. Meaning the reason nobody came to your door with concern might have had a last name." Denise let the wall hold her up. "So what then? Y'all clean house and we live happily ever after?" "I don't sell fairy tales," Pierce said. "I sell affidavits. And I scare easy people with sunlight." She turned to go, then turned back. "You're doing good, Miss Hardy. Better than good, actually. You're making their life complicated. Men like that hate complications." Denise watched her go. The alley breathed. The city made one of those noises that could be a laugh or a cry. She went back to work and flipped omelets like they were contracts. That evening she walked home the long way again, as if the streets could offer different answers if you arranged them in a new order. The sky hung low and bruised. She passed the mural with the angel and decided the halo looked less like a mill and more like a steering wheel. She wondered who was driving. When she turned onto Tyler, she saw Rosalind on her porch, a silhouette with a cup. "Girl," Rosalind called softly, "you better come get this wisdom." "I am low on wisdom," Denise said, sinking onto the steps. "Then take mine," Rosalind said. "I got extra this week. I've been thinking about Keon, the little one with the scar. His mama used to come by the pantry. She got hit with the flu one winter and never stood up straight since. Boys like that, they rent their bodies to the next man because the rent man ain't patient." She side-eyed Denise. "Don't be surprised if he turns helpful. In this city, helpful gets you killed," Denise said. "In this city, helpful gets you saints," Rosalind said. "Sometimes they the same thing." The porch lights blinked on up and down the block like the night was being gentle. Denise went inside and found both her boys at the table. Jamal doing homework, Marcus scrolling through a thread of highlights with an expression that didn't match his face a year ago. She touched both their shoulders, her hands a benediction and a demand. Her phone lit. A text from Pierce. Watched it. Call me when boy's asleep. Denise set the phone face down and smiled at Jamal's question about galaxies until his eyelids lowered like blinds. She watched Marcus attempt an essay about something he didn't want to think about, and she pushed his laptop closed and made him talk about what he wanted, and he said, shoes, and she laughed, and they were okay for 10 minutes, and then the house went quiet, and she called the detective. Pierce picked up on the first ring. It's him, she said, voice steady. He's on the footage. Not his face, he's careful, but his voice. And a reflection in a car window might be enough. I can work with that. What did it show? Denise asked, the words tasting like metal. The alley, Pierce said. Steps you told me about. Him giving orders. Him saying your name. Him laughing after. She paused. I'm sorry. I wouldn't be able to eat if I were you. I can't anyway, Denise said. What do we do? We set a trap that looks like a favor, Pierce said. He offered you the past in a box. Now we offer him the future in a voicemail. We make him come to you? What if he comes to me with a gun? Denise said. Then I come to him with a bigger room, Pierce said. I'll be near. I'll be nearer than he knows. Denise closed her eyes and saw the alley. She opened them and saw her table, her boys' homework, the evidence of an ordinary life she was out for blood to protect. Okay, she said. Okay, Pierce echoed. You rest if you can. Tomorrow we begin the part where they make mistakes. She hesitated. Denise, this might get loud. It's already loud, Denise said. I just stopped pretending it was thunder. After she hung up, Denise walked to the window and looked out at the street she refused to surrender. Across the way, the dark sedan was gone. In its place, a beat-up Civic with a missing hubcap sat under the streetlight like an honest witness. She smiled. She turned from the window and went to bed, not because sleep would come, but because a woman can lie down like a soldier. In the night, rain started, the first good rain in days. It cleaned something off the air. It made the train's moan sound less like grief and more like a warning. Denise dreamed of Derek, but this time he didn't tell her to stay behind the dumpster. This time he said, "Tell our boy the truth," and when she said, "I did," he laughed like she had finally remembered a line. She woke up with tears drying hot on her face and the sun cracking the sky open like an egg. She texted Pierce, "Ready." And then, because the world is big and boys are tender, she wrote a note and slid it into Marcus's shoe the way she used to when he was 9 and had nightmares. You are not a target. You are a person. You are mine. Mom? He'd find it at practice and roll his eyes and smile in the same breath. She hoped the smile would win. The doorbell rang at 9. Denise tightened her robe, walked to the door, and opened it to Keon again, wet with rain, shaking in the doorway like a dog that had been yelled at for getting wet. "I can't do it," he blurted, before she could speak. "I can't be in it no more. Please." He looked behind him like the sidewalk had teeth. "Please help me." Denise held the door wider without thinking, without calculating odds or consequences, because sometimes a woman's instinct is the opposite of survival and exactly right. "Come in," she said, and he crossed the threshold like it was a border and the chapter they were writing shifted under their feet.
You keep your mouth shut, your boys live. You open it. Hands up!
The rain had stopped hours ago, but the city still smelled like wet steel and gasoline when Denise Hardy pulled the curtains back. The block looked clean, too clean, as if the storm had washed the filth into the sewers and left Gary with the illusion of peace. She knew better. Storms and Gary didn't take away trouble. They just moved it around. Keon sat at her kitchen table, shoulders hunched, hoodie damp, fingers trembling as he held the mug of hot tea Denise had made him. The boy had shown up on her porch the night before, like an abandoned prayer-shaking, half-broken, with fear sweating out of him in every direction. She'd let him in, against every instinct that told her it was a risk. But then again, everything about her life was risk now. "You don't got to be scared in here," Denise told him, though she didn't believe it herself. Keon nodded without meeting her eyes. "You don't know what they'll do if they find out I came here." "I know exactly what they'll do," Denise said, steady. "And that's why we're going to make sure they don't." From the hallway, Marcus leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face stiff. "Mama, you really trust him?" Denise looked at her son or child, who had grown too fast this summer, taller than his daddy ever was, carrying the weight of too many lies and too much truth. "I don't trust anybody," she said. "But sometimes the only way out is together." Marcus looked at Keon, then back at his mother. "If he gets us hurt." "He won't," Denise cut in. Her voice was firm, so firm it left no room for Marcus's protest. Keon lifted his eyes finally, red-rimmed but hardening with something like resolve. "I ain't here to set nobody up. I'm here 'cause I'm done. I can't keep doing their dirt. Calvin, Terrell, they don't care about us kids. We just bodies. Bodies to throw in front of bullets." He paused, voice breaking. "I watched them do it. I watched them laugh about it." Denise swallowed the bile rising in her throat. She thought of Derek. She thought of the alley. She thought of every night she'd lied to her boys about the world being safer than it was. And she decided right there at the kitchen table that the lie had ended. She reached for her phone. "Detective Pierce," she said. Keon stiffened. "No, please. You want out, Keon?" Denise's eyes bored into him. "Then you do it right. You stand up. You tell the truth. Otherwise, they'll keep you crawling forever." His breath came quick, shallow. Then finally slow, reluctant, he nodded. "All right." The station smelled like sweat, stale coffee, and paper. Pierce sat across from them, her bun a little looser than usual, her eyes sharper. She listened as Keon spilled pieces of himself across the table. The orders he'd run, the deliveries, the night he'd been forced to bring the shoebox to Denise's porch. He told them how Terrell Vaughn never touched anything himself, how Calvin Reed was the smiling front man, and how boys like him were expendable. "Got names?" Pierce asked softly. Keon nodded, rattled them off like a litany. Pierce wrote fast, face unreadable. When he was done, the silence in the room was thick. Finally, Pierce said, "This is enough to build, but it's not enough to finish. We need Terrell himself. On tape, in voice, saying things no lawyer can scrub." Denise leaned forward. "Then use me." Both Pierce and Marcus said her name at once, alarmed. But Denise was already there, already past fear. "He wants to talk to me. He thinks he's got me scared into silence. Let's give him a reason to feel safe. Let's give him rope." Pierce studied her for a long beat, then nodded once. "All right. But if we do this, we do it my way." The plan was simple on paper and deadly in practice. Denise would meet Terrell. She'd pretend to fold, pretend to be the grieving widow ready to fall back in line. They'd wire her. Detectives would wait outside. Keon would feed her the right words to draw Terrell out. The meeting place was chosen by Terrell, himself an old auto garage near 19th Avenue, shutters down, a single light above the bay. It smelled of oil and rust, a place where evidence could vanish in drains. Denise arrived early, heart pounding so hard it made her ears ring. She touched the wire beneath her blouse and thought of her boys Marcus at practice, Jamal safe with Roslyn. She thought of how far the lie had carried them, and how truth was heavier but cleaner. Then headlights carved into the lot, the dark sedan. Calvin got out first, smile too bright, scar catching the light. Terrell followed. He was taller than she remembered, thicker in the middle, his suit sharp in a way that said money had been laundered clean. His eyes, though his eyes were still ice. "Well, well," Terrell said, voice smooth as syrup poured on glass. "The widow Hardy. 10 years quiet, and suddenly you find your voice." Denise swallowed her fear. "I ain't here to make noise. I'm here to make peace." He tilted his head, amused. "Peace, huh? That's a funny word from a woman who threatened my phone." She steadied her breath. "I just want my boys left alone." Terrell smirked, stepped closer. "And why should I? Boy's talented, boy's loyal. Boy could wear our crown one day." Denise's hand curled into a fist. She forced herself to stay calm. "Because you and I got history. Because I've kept quiet this long. Because I saw what you did to Derek, and I ain't told a soul." Calvin shifted behind him, his smile faltering. Terrell's eyes narrowed. "Careful, D." Denise leaned in, voice low but sharp. "I remember the gun. I remember your laugh. And if I'm still breathing, it means God ain't done with me yet." Silence. The kind that hangs before a string snaps. Then Terrell laughed. A slow, terrible laugh. "You got fire, I'll give you that. But fire burns out." He leaned close, his lips near her ear. "You keep your mouth shut, your boys live long enough to bury you. You open it." "Got it." Pierce's voice crackled faint in Denise's ear. "We got it all." The bay doors slammed open. Lights flooded the garage. Voices shouted, "Police! Hands where I can see 'em." Chaos erupted. Calvin bolted, but 2 uniforms took him down fast. Terrell froze, his cool cracking just for a second before he raised his hands, sneer painted across his face. "Y'all think this sticks? You think this is the end?" Pierce herself stepped forward, cuffs ready. "It's the end of something." Denise exhaled for the first time all night. Weeks later, Gary felt different. Not fixed, never fixed, but different. Calvin and Terrell sat behind bars awaiting trial, their lawyers already screaming corruption, entrapment, anything that might keep the walls from closing in. But Denise didn't care about courts anymore. She cared about mornings. She stood on the sidelines of Marcus's basketball game, the gym thick with the smell of popcorn and hope. He leapt, hung in the air like time itself, paused to admire him, and slammed the ball through the hoop. The crowd roared. Jamal jumped beside her, yelling, "That's my brother," so loud people laughed. Denise clapped, tears threatening. She thought of Derek. She thought of the alley. She thought of the shoebox, the phone, the lies, the weight. And she thought of the choice she made to stop running from ghosts and start fighting them. When Marcus jogged over during a timeout, sweaty and grinning, he handed her a towel. "We good, Mama?" "We better than good," she said. And for the first time in a decade, she meant it. Outside the gym, night had fallen. The city hummed. Somewhere, trouble still brewed, shadows still shifted. But for now, for this moment, Denise Hardy allowed herself to breathe. And in the quiet between breaths, she whispered the truth she'd earned. We survived. Not every story ends with justice. Some just stop, where the paperwork does. But if you listened closely, this wasn't just about what happened. It was about what we ignore. The assumptions we let slide. The voices we tune out because they don't come in the right tone. Somewhere, someone's living with the fallout of this story, not as a headline, but as their everyday. So if this story stayed with you, don't let it fade. Shine it forward. Ask more. Doubt what's too quiet. Because what we choose to see, or not see, decides what happens next. Like, comment, share, not for clicks, but for clarity. Because awareness is how silence breaks, and how truth finds daylight.